So again, we're back here today. Nick, Mike, and David. We'll start out with what we're drinking because we love to do that. And I am going with just water today. I'm giving the liver a little bit of a rest after the weekend.
4th of July did good. Drinking what used to be one of my favorite beers, PBR. So I got it as a nice 4th of July gift. So cheers.
I opted today to wear my I drink Michigan beer and I know things shirt, so I felt I needed to drink something Michigan. So I have Virtue Cider. I have a couple different ones. I have Michigan Apple and Michigan Cherry.
Oh, there we go.
You're all sorts of Michigan today.
Proud of you.
By the way, Nick, I just want you to know when I was 5, I drank PBR.
Hey, you need both. My liver was in a break today, though.
I would drink some PBR at the same age, too, when my grandpa would let me take sips.
Yep, that's what I did. The dog usually drank the Kool-Aid, so I had to drink something, and it was PBR.
Yep. So, today's topic, Dave Ramsey. Everybody in the financial world knows him, knows of him, knows what he does. We're here to give you our viewpoint of Dave Ramsey, how we feel, and what we think. I'm going to be honest. We agree upon some things. We disagree upon some things. One thing I guess David and I want to be kind of clear about is Dave Ramsey has made a lot of people's lives different because of his teachings, right? And anytime you teach financial responsibility in any way, I think it's a great thing to do. So, I do want to give him kudos for that. But I come from a different financial standpoint, so I'm very excited to talk about those types of things today. Dave's famous sayings, I want to start out with that, right? So he always says, better than I deserve, right? And to me, it really gets to me, right? Because when you're better than you deserve, that means you find yourself at such a low point. You find yourself that you've done something wrong, that you don't deserve what you have. And I think all three of us can agree, like, we earn everything, like, right? Like, this knowledge that we give is free, and we deserve to hear the stories. We deserve to hear things. Like, we owe nothing to anybody, right? I mean, and so, I want to try to get people to change their mindset to be, from better than you deserve to I'm getting what I've earned, right? I mean, that's a big thing for me. So, David, I know you have a couple of Dave Ramsey little things.
Yeah, so I think the nice thing about the Ramsey plan is it works for everybody, okay? If you want to do the bare minimum to get your debts paid off and start living a better life, you can do Ramsey's method. It's easy, it's tried and true, but it's not ever going to maximize your savings or your investments or anything else. It's the easy way out, I guess, is the way I like to look at it. I've listened to him at times. He tends to be a little abrasive because he is so anti-debt. I'm not anti-debt, okay? There's good debt, there's bad debt. He hates credit cards. I love them. Credit cards pay me a lot of money every year. I don't pay interest to credit cards. I will not do it. I don't pay late fees. I don't pay anything to credit cards. They're going to pay me to use them. And if they don't, I'm not going to use them. I know when.
If you guys don't believe us about David's passion about credit cards, go watch our video on credit cards, right? This guy's eyes light up, and he just, he loves it. I can't say I'm financially irresponsible. I'm just too lazy to want to pay two things in 1 month, so I don't have them. But I agree with you, David. I think credit cards used the correct way, you can make them work for you, and time is money, and all the old fun sayings. So
Well, and they're a great financial tool. I know when Mike was going through his divorce, him and I sat down and we looked at everything. We've covered that in other episodes, and he'll tell you that I never steered him away from using a credit card. I just said, when you're using one, if you apply for new credit, just make sure you're getting something out of this because you need to earn something. They need to pay you. Am I right or wrong, Mike?
Oh, and I felt I had to because a lot of the credit cards I had were credit cards that I shared with my ex-wife, and I didn't want to be linked to that name anymore. And so, I did the smart things like got an Amazon card that because I knew I was going to make a lot of purchases with Amazon that would allow me to earn points. And, it took me a while, but even over the last year, I got, a card that, kind of does a mix of just travel and other points. But yeah, I'm smart about what I do. And, I don't pay annual fees. I don't pay, late fees, and if I have to make a purchase that is unexpected, if I can get, sign up for the store credit card and get 18 months, same as cash or interest free or whatever, I'll do that, pay that debt over time without having to pay interest on it.
Yeah. So, these are tools we like. And, Ramsey, for his part, he has 7 baby steps. And we're going to kind of go into those and give thoughts on each one and really kind of walk you through what we like and what we don't like about the Ramsey plan. And Nick, I know you got the steps in front of you, so why don't we hit number 1 up?
Sure. So number 1 for Dave Ramsey is save $1,000 for emergency funds. Make your minimum payments, but make sure you build up a fund, savings account for emergency use only. David and I are kind of going back and forth, and on this one, the $1,000 is really, if let's say you blow a tire, let's say, your car breaks down and you need towed, something like that, right? Most everything that's not catastrophic in this world, like besides a new roof, right? You can get by with $1,000. We just got hit with a $300 pool thing, right? So $300, like, my utilities, right? Nothing's going to add up to something that big. I think I told David, my opinion is I'd rather see, instead of, let's call it $1,000, I'd rather see 1 month worth of housing payment. You don't need utilities because nothing's crazy. But so if you're renting, right, that's how much you need saved. If you have a house, right, 1 month payment. So your coastal people are going to be a little bit higher, right? I want it to be the just in case you can't make that mortgage payment. You have that payment until the house can get sold or something like that. If you're living at home, $1,000 might be the thing, or just a little bit less. So I guess that's where I come from is enough to buy enough time to get the thing sold that you don't need. So,
Mr. David,
Yes, dear.
you can come to my party, but you're bringing no socks.
no socks.
Okay. Anybody that
That's
wants to
my
know,
four-
that's next
that's my
adorable daughter
4-year-old.
that I buy socks for.
Bring a toy.
Yeah, to say we'll get into that story another fun time. So,
So
yeah,
this is kind of where Nick and I differ a little bit. I totally agree. 1,000's an arbitrary number to me. I want $1,500 because that covers not only my house payment, but that covers a little bit extra in case, something goes wrong with a vehicle or, anything else happens. I really would feel more comfortable with $1,500. And like when him and I were talking earlier, younger people, like my daughter, for example, she could probably get by with $500. It really depends on your situation. So it goes back to yes, everything Ramsey says works, but it doesn't mean everything fits into these holes real nicely.
And I want to be. One thing I guess that bugs me is, you hear about these baby steps, and I guess if you don't go to the classes, which I've never gone to a class, and so you have to buy in to learn this knowledge, and I think that's what gets me is like, I feel like baby step number one, in my opinion, should literally be write a budget, right? Like, know your damn numbers, like write it down. That should be baby step number one to me. Like, you don't need to worry about money at this point. You need to worry about how much has gone out. Like, every time that credit card, that debit card, that any payment that you've made, that needs to be step one, right? Write every dollar that's gone anywhere and write it down. I think that's the number one step. And I think in this learning, people are just like, oh, I got to save $1,000. And when you're just reading, unless you buy in, you don't understand that it's like, oh, pay minimums on all your stuff until you get to that 1,000, right? Like, so it's a little bit, I love that he holds classes in a smaller amount, but he just puts a DVD up there, and I don't know, I think it's what, $150 to sign up for his package stuff, and if he's always about giving, it's like, man, why can't that next person give to the next person and have these people keep doing classes or something? If you're Mr. Give to the world, and I get that you can't give everything, but I don't know. Don't preach that you're the biggest giver if you're making your millions off of selling knowledge for financial wealth.
Well, again, it's how much do you really need to sell it for? He could make good money at way less.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are free things too. He's got a radio show, so you could listen to his radio show nightly. And again, I said it earlier, my big issues are he does a lot of talking down to people because he feels that will get through to them. So quick story. I go back to this a lot because Mike's one of the people I've helped that, obviously comes on here that I can refer to. So Mike gets divorced. He comes to me with his bills. We sit down and look at everything. Mike, would you have listened to a word I said if I sat there and talked down to you or told you were stupid? And that doesn't work with normal people. They want to have a conversation. They want to know what to do because they don't necessarily know. Talking down to them or telling them that they're an idiot, that's not going to make them see that, okay, yeah, you're in a crappy spot, but we can get out of this, and this is how we do it. Okay. I know when Mike looked at, okay, these are all the things that, need to be paid off now, and I have to figure out how to do this. I laid out some ideas, some of the advice he took, some of it he didn't, but, we're sitting here, God, what is this, Mike, 4 years later?
Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah, and you're out of debt.
Yep.
You're saving money, you're doing, what you need to do to have the life you want to have. I mean, you bought a house, 3 years ago?
Yeah, a little over 2.
Well, over 2 years ago. So, I mean, within 2 years of his divorce, he was buying a house, which is difficult when you look at the financial situation that he brought to me. I mean, it's not like he was $100,000 in debt because he wasn't. But all of a sudden he looked at, okay, well, I got to pay these bills off that I didn't necessarily know were out there. I got to pay child support. I got to find a place to live. And, within 2 years, he cleared up pretty much all of his debt, bought a house, and, moved on.
Yeah.
And there was no talking down to him that had to happen because, we could just sit there and have an honest conversation and say, okay, this is what I would do.
Yeah. And that's, his big thing is, go to your pastor or go to the person ahead of your church and they'll talk to you. And it's like, I don't want to talk about religion on here. That it goes to opinions, but it's he should be. It's him. He's the one teaching this. He's the one who should be talking to people this way. We think that there's plenty of ways to skin a cat. So I think more personable things, right? Us getting on here, and some people will listen to somebody for many different reasons. So, we've gotten the emergency fund. Again, we think that's step two. We think that's step two. we think step one is write your budget, figure out your budget. Step two is the emergency fund of what you think. And then we're going to go into the next. Dave Ramsey's baby step number 2 is pay off all debt except for your house, and do it in what's called the snowball effect, or the snowball system. And the snowball system is take all of your debts, write them down. So, example, credit card that has $100, a credit card that has $500, a medical bill for $1,000, right? And I don't know what else you might have financed in your life, but so write them down, figure out what the lowest is. So take that $100 credit card and pay it off really quick. Then take all that money that you were, so pay all your minimums, on the 100, 500, and 1,000. But on the 100, you're going to pay all your extra money towards that 100 and get that thing paid off. And then you're going to move to take all that extra money plus what your original minimum payment was. So on $100 for, let's call it $20, you're going to take that 20 plus all your extra and start putting it away at the 500. So it's going to quickly get you to pay all these things off. I know, I'll let David talk about Snowball and why he likes it and things like that. I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just saying I personally, from being a financial person, I like what's called the avalanche effect, right? The highest interest, what I'm paying the most money on, I want to chunk my money at that. My mind works in long-term thinking anyway, right? So like when real estate, I think I'll have money in 30 years, not, hey, I'll have money tomorrow, because I think that's what makes a lot of people fail, is like this instant gratification, this want for money. So the avalanche, right? So it's your highest interest in what you're paying, what costs you the most money to borrow, is what I focus on, and then start paying that off. So like with all my houses, I pick which one has the most, start paying it off, or most vulnerable, I guess. So commercial loans and things like that. If a bank can call a loan, I want to get that, so that way they have no control of my money, right? But if the 30-year, I let that kind of go. So David, tell us a little bit about Snowball, why you like it.
So I think the thing with Snowball is it's extremely easy and it's extremely gratifying. It offers you quick gratification, because if you can pay off that low bill and then start rolling it into the next bill. So, okay, you used to put $50 towards that $100 bill every month, and now you've paid it off in 2 months. Now you can take that $50 plus the $20 you were paying on the $500 bill, and you're paying $70 towards that bill. When you get that paid off, you now have $70 to put towards the next bill. So people see movement quicker because they're paying those low things off quickly. I know it works. I've used it with people before. Some people just have to have that instant gratification of, I'm seeing this go away. Financially, it makes sense unless you're trying to, again, maximize your savings and make the right financial moves. If you're trying to do that, let's get rid of those high interest rates the quickest that we can. Okay. I'm always for, if you have high interest rates, go find a lower interest rate and move that money there. Okay. Whether that's a loan or a different credit card or whatever it is. If some credit card will give you 0% for a year and they'll charge you a 3% fee to move it, then 3% is better than 19 or 20 or 30% you're getting charged in finance charges with whatever card you have. So if you're smart, you look into different ways to distribute that out. Now, again, I have a really good friend who had really bad financial sense and spent a lot of money on store credit cards, and we used the Snowball method to get him out of all that debt. And I think for the most part he doesn't use too many credit cards anymore, but again, he at least knows that, okay, if I screw up here, I can start to snowball things and get things paid off. So again, it's very easy, it's very simple. It's easy to follow. It gives you a lot of, gratification early because, hey, I got something paid off. Look, I did something. Yay.
Well, they say, and they call it gazelle intensity, right? So gazelle's quick and it leaps, and I do think that happens, right? Like once you get something accomplished, right? You're like, oh, man, let's go to the next one. Really, we're not saying it doesn't work. We're just saying financially, the smarter decision is to kind of go over here. It's not to say, it's hard because when you think about it, I guess if you're trying to make the best financial decision, you would have never gotten yourself into that situation in the first place. But I say I know that there's people out there that start doing research a little later in life, and something just clicks, and they just say, "I'm tired of living like this." So this is where they want to get. Um, brings us to baby step number 3. 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up. So now I'm going to revert back to our number one of steps, budget, right? So to find your 3 to 6 months of expenses, it's gonna constantly, it's gonna change. I can't say constantly change, but it's gonna change. So, right, we're gonna go to the everything's paid off. So now we have to go back to our budget, and we no longer have that $20 minimum payment, that $50 minimum payment, that $100 minimum payment, right? So right there we have $170 that we don't have payments for anymore. So right, that can help us go into the 3 to 6 months. So we don't need to budget. We don't need to budget for.
Hello.
I'm doing, so the 3 months doesn't need to include the debts anymore, right? So I personally, I do 6 months just because it makes me feel comfortable on everything that I have. And I guess, right, so we've been 3.5 months into COVID now or so. And, so we don't know how long pandemics last. We don't know anything. So I've always been a very, shy, like, I want the biggest comfort zone, I guess, when it comes to it. So, yeah, I think Dave Ramsey has it there. And after your debts are done, start saving to make sure that you have all your bills paid, guaranteed for a long period of time in case something happens. So
I would agree with that. I think 3 to 6 months in reserves is adequate. I know that, when I haven't had debt, that's usually where I'm sitting, is somewhere between 3 and 6 months, when I have had debt, I'm working as hard as I can to pay it off. Like I think I've said before, right now, my one debt that I have that isn't the house or the car is I borrowed money from my daughter to pay for a new roof, because it was cheaper to take a 3% loan from her than it was to take a 5% home on a HELOC. So my original goal when I took it out was I told her I'd pay her off in 2.5 years. 2.5 years is up next summer. I'll have her paid off by the end of this year. Sure. I'm throwing every extra dime I have at her just to get it done, and then it's out of the way.
I have a nice wasp that decided to join me, so I'm very excited. Thanks everybody for not letting me do this inside. So if it looks like I have Tourette's, it's that I'm trying not to get stung by a wasp. No, and David, that makes you make a great point. Again, you took on debt from family, right? And it was still debt. Yep. Now, but you again, some people are going to say, "Oh, you took it from your kid." Well, no, I mean, right? David's kid invests her money. She likes to make her money work. And there's no, like, she can have 15,000 sitting in one of our banks that's going to give you 3%. But you have to do X amount of transactions. You have to have secure, direct deposit. You have to have, so many stipulations to get to this thing, where David was like, "Hey, you know what? You already have 15,000 here. You're not making any money on this money. 3% is very fair." And, his daughter was like, "Hey, you know what? It seems very fair." Like, also the amount of money that he's probably made her from all the things that he does for her, and, it's a great opportunity on both ends in my opinion. So I think two happy parties at that point, and such a low, again, you saved 2%, you made her probably 2%, if not more. I went to my bank account and I have a substantial amount of money sitting in it, and I literally made 94 cents. That was because one of my things ended and I didn't pay attention enough, so I didn't make the money I should have. That was my fault, right? So,
Well, you bring up a great
have my
point.
spreadsheet up.
You bring up a great point, because if she hadn't loaned me that money, right now she'd be making 1.1% on it. So she's making 3.
Yep.
So she's making money. She's thrilled.
Yep.
I'm saving money. I'm thrilled. Benefits everyone.
So
I know the next baby step is very controversial with Nick and I.
it is. It
Hit it,
is.
Nick.
No, so baby step number 4, Dave Ramsey, is invest 15% into your 401k, 403b, into your retirement funds, right? So self-employed, other things. We've talked about those. So baby step 4 is 15% investment at this point. So before this, Dave Ramsey wants you to, in baby step 2 and baby step 3, while you're paying your debt and while you're saving for your 3 to 6 months, he wants you to completely stop saving for your future, your retirement. This is a hot subject for David and I. If my company is going to give me 3% or 100% match on 3%, I don't care, 50% match on anything. Look, if I'm going to get free money, I'm not going to stop getting free money. Like, that's the biggest struggle for me. Again, he wants the gazelle intensity. He wants people to get back to this point and so quick. And I never want anybody to fail, but I know that there's possibilities, and I know that there's things that happen during this time. Like, I don't want to go crazy, but let's say you're doing all this and then COVID hits and now you're not getting the income that you were, or this and that. Like, you haven't been paying for your retirement. You haven't been guaranteeing that future is going to happen. No, like, you need to guarantee that someday you're going to wake up and you're never going to work again. Like, hear me out, people. I'm directly at you. You need to want to never answer to somebody again. Like, unless it's your wife, right? Like, you want this so bad. So, David, I think I've said enough of my opinion of stopping this.
So here's the deal. Even with money, and I first got hired in at the company I still work for, they offered a 5% match on. They offered 100% match on anything you'd put in up to 5%. So if you put in 5%, you got a 5% match. I was bringing home at this job about $180 every 2 weeks after I paid for insurance. But you better believe I put in a 5% into my retirement account from the day they hired me, because they were giving me a free 5% to do it. Your best bet is maximize those things out as soon as you can. Now, should you be taking extra money and throwing it into retirement accounts? Yeah, I'm not saying to do that. I don't go open up a Roth with $5,000 if you don't have $5,000 to open up a Roth with. But you should absolutely be contributing something to some account. We've talked about investments before. Open up an Acorns account and throw $10 in it a month. Something, anything. Find a way to start saving for that retirement, because at some point you're going to get older and you're going to go, you know what? I don't want to do another 30 years of this. I'd like to relax.
And one thing, I'm hoping some younger people are watching. I've been talking to a lot of younger people recently, and they're not doing this retirement thing. And I'm like, why? Why aren't you? Well, honestly, I don't intend to be at this job very long. What? That doesn't make any sense. Like, these people don't understand rollover. These people are lacking the knowledge of like, hey, this is where, I don't plan to be here that long. And then I've talked to some people that have been there 19 years, and they're like, I didn't plan to be here this long. It's like, man, if you're only planning to be there a week, who cares? Start it. If they're going to give you $1 for free, start it. I don't remember the exact amount, but at one point they'll cash you out, and hey, maybe it'll help you pay off all your debt, and you can restart the next thing. But always roll it over. Always make sure that you start right away when they let you, and invest at least the match of what a company will do. If you are self-employed, right? We talked about investments. Figure out how to do those. Put some amount of money towards it. We're not saying it has to be big amounts, but something for the future is always better than nothing. So, number 5 is save for your kids' college. When he says it, right, he says, he wants people to, change their family history, or how does he put it, right? He words it in, ways. Well, David, your mom's not paying for your college right now, right? I mean,
Nope.
my parents never paid for my college. So I think that's an opinion thing. Again, it says save for kids' college. I think you need to save for something of your kids. I can't guarantee it should be college. My hope and dream is that my real estate business is huge, and I'm going to need to hire somebody, and why not hire a person that has just as much passion to see me retire as they have a passion to see themselves retire someday. So, Rick, talking about my kid. My wife, on the other hand, is in medical. She wants to see her become medical. And I'm okay with either way, but I'd like to see save for something of that future, right? She wants to start a business. I want to be able to help out. So, if you don't ever intend to have kids, or you don't have kids at the moment, right? So that if you started it young, things like that. If you don't have to do baby step 5. I say, David, I know, when you started getting financially, you guys didn't save for, Caitlin's college right away. So
Yeah, we didn't have the money to do it, and we got really lucky. By the time she was ready to go to school, she went to community college. I could pay for that, so I did. And she still lived at home, so I continued to pay all the bills. In 100% honesty, she still got an allowance until I think February of this year. It was only $20 a month, but it's $260 a year.
adds up.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's a car payment. So, I did what I could because I couldn't save for her when she was younger. And, she, because of that, has the ability to pay for school with no loans. And that's huge because, a lot of kids are coming out of school with debt. And again, we talked about it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to a 4-year college. We talked to Mike a few weeks ago. Hang on. We talked to Mike a few weeks ago, and he said his son might want to go into culinary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can go to culinary school. We said it before, JRCC in our backyard here, they have one of the top culinary programs in the country. You can go there probably for $8,000-9,000 for the entire program.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're putting aside money, you're saving it up, that's great. If that's what he decides he wants to do, he can basically, if Mike's putting away money, go for free.
Yep, and I think for me, that one's an if you want to kind of a thing. I'm not gonna force you to give your kids when you're gonna give it to them, right? If you think that you're gonna work your whole life and whenever you pass away, then you'll hand your kids some money. I mean, sadly, it's your money. You can do what you wish with it, right? So I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to tell you how to raise your family. I'm not going to tell you what to do with it. But all I can say is set some money away just in case something happens, kind of a thing. So, number 6 is pay off your home early. So Dave Ramsey's baby step. This one's a topic for us, I guess. I go back and forth on this one. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Again, I think it works for everyone, right? So he said this is, Dave thinks that these. I guess that's the whole point is when he talks, he says this is the fastest way to financial freedom, right? And if we're gonna put numbers to paper, I'm going to beat you with our financial discussion, right? This is not the fastest way. It is a way. It is a great way. It is a successful way. It is not the fastest. That is a guarantee. But so he wants you to pay off your home early. So I like a paid off house, right? His saying is you can't foreclose on a thing that doesn't have any money owed on it, or so. But you still have your taxes and things like that, right? So, thank you, Dave, for telling people to pay off their home early, but also keeping them to the struggling to get there. So, what I mean is, Dave Ramsey wants you to take 25% of your monthly income. So let's say you make 15 an hour, 40 hours a week, whatever. Let's say it's $500 take home after taxes, everything like that at the end of the week. If you get overtime, you put it in there for a month. But let's say you bring home on the 4 months, you bring home $2,000. Well, theoretically, he says you can only buy a house a month. That includes your taxes and your escrow, or your taxes and your insurance. So
say that again, Nick, because you broke up a little there.
Yep, sorry. So say with the if you're making $500 a week, just you, single person, and that's $2,000 a month. So you get 25% of that. So $500. You get to that's how much you can spend on your house, including taxes and insurance for your house. So $500 isn't going to buy you much. And the other thing that I have an issue with is he wants you to only get a 15-year mortgage, right? So now you've increased how quickly you have to pay it, and you've decreased the amount of money that you can spend on a house. I can't say I love the idea of it, I guess, I picked a number back when I bought my first house that I was comfortable with. Now looking at it, here we are 10, 11 years later. Man, I wish I would have struggled in the beginning because, the house I paid 50 grand for is now worth just shy of 200. Think about if I would have bought that $180,000 house the same way I bought that $50,000. Like that thing would be worth $400,000 or $500,000 right now, right? I mean, back when I bought things. So, don't ever play the appreciation game. Don't ever do it. But, I think, with having this 15%, having 15% going into your retirement, having everything, I think you're lowering your take home. So 25% of that is pretty small to me. So, I think we talked about when buying your first house, I like the 30%. I think you're still comfortable at that point. But I'm not financing cars and doing all that. So I'm financially being responsible. So, also, he wants a 15-year. I really like a 30-year. To me, they're both contracts. One of them, when I was looking at 15 and 30-year, it was really only like it wasn't even a half a percentage more to get the 30-year. So to me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, I wasn't paying that much more every month, and if I wanted to, I could pay it off in 15. But let's say COVID hits just like this, and I was stressing myself. Well, you know what? I only have to make a half, well, it'd be about 3/4 of a payment compared to what it was. So, I really like that. I really like the 30 years, especially for all my investments. I do 30 on all my investment properties. If I choose to pay them off early, that's my choice. But I'm not going to tell people to rush out and do it because I like leverage. So
Well, I think one of the things you need to look at, again, we preach this in every episode we do. How are you going to know what you can afford in a house? Well, I know because I have a budget.
Mhm.
If I have a budget, I know what I can afford. This is what I spend on everything. So this is what I can afford for a house. That might be 25%, that might be 30%. Hell, you might find out you have 40% of your income to spend on a house. It gives you options. But if you're not writing down what you're spending, you have no idea. Because I know plenty of people that if you said, hey, 25% of your income should be going to pay for your house, they don't have that kind of money. It's just not there.
Well, I guess I have real estate income, but if I were to think about it, if I were to be me, get the heck of the steal of a deal I did on my house, I wouldn't have been able to buy it because I mean, gosh, I'm putting 20+ % into retirement. I'm putting other money away over here. I'm putting other money away over here, and I'm living off of half of my paycheck, honestly. So to me that doesn't make any sense. But I know that I'd rather save more money, spend a little bit more on a house, and you know have all my investments going, have everything like that. That's what drives me is like watching all this in the end, just go crazy up, and then watching the house slowly go down. So, I really, to me, I think it becomes who you are as a person if you're going to be a saver. If you're following all these steps, and you don't own a house yet, let's say you don't own a house and you've gotten to this, um, to where you get to buy a 15-year. I think this is a great time to relook at yourself and go, how much did I hate doing this Dave Ramsey thing, but how much do I love it now? How much did we take? Because I mean, I don't know how many people are oh, we're debt free, save your 3 to 6 months, and then he wants to see everybody pay cash for a house. I don't see many people doing that. But now, how many people are taking 20% down on the house, right? How many people are waiting that much longer? Nope, these people are going out there 3.5% down. So it's like that instantly tells you that they have certain goals that they want to hit when they want to hit them. So I think you have to look at yourself, realize exactly what you want and what you can pay. So yeah, I think a little bit higher is not a big deal. Dave Ramsey is a Christian, with old school Christian values. What your belief is what your belief is, and that's okay with me, right? I as long as you're not preaching hate, I'm okay with it, man. Like I love it. But one thing that gets me is Dave Ramsey says, never do anything if you're not married. And I think there's exceptions to every rule, right? So I have friends that haven't been married, but they've been together 43 years. I mean, they're and so at that point, it's like there's a certain point. If you're 2 years or less into a relationship, yeah, I'm not gonna. I mean, banks won't really finance you on a house and things like that too often. But I guess I would say, take a look at it and see. Take a look at it and see, like, hey, I'm just gonna put this house in my name. I'm gonna make sure I can afford it by myself. Or in the back of your mind, have that knowledge to think, hey, I'm okay with a roommate. Because if you're not okay with a roommate, don't buy a house that you can't afford. With I'll be honest, they say I love my wife. We're gonna celebrate 10 years here in 10 days. But there's always that chance that she's going to leave me. So I have to make sure I'm set for this, right? I mean, Mike, you couldn't suspect that you were going to have a divorce, you know? I mean, I don't think there's a single person that walks into the marriage and expects to get divorced. So, you know, that's why I always aim low and plan for just my income kind of a thing. So, but you know, Dave Ramsey's really against it. If you're not married, if you're not together, I guess don't include the income. So I take a look at yourself, figure out exactly where your relationship is, and combine your finances right away. So say baby step 6. Baby step 7 is build wealth and give. David, what do you feel about that?
I think I feel the same way with that as I feel with most of the Ramsey steps. You know, it's nice to say you're only on one step, you only do one thing at a time, but that's not realistic in life nowadays. You know, I'm currently paying off debt. I'm currently saving, you know, into my 3 to 6 month expenses. I'm currently building my Roth IRAs and my 403B. I'm not working on paying my home off early. You know, I'm comfortable with where my mortgage sits right now. It'll get to that point where I start throwing more money at it, but I'm not there. But as far as building wealth and giving, I'm always trying to build wealth, and I'm always giving. I support charities. I do charity work. If you're not doing those things, you know, for me at least, I'm not living a fulfilled life. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, I don't have money to do that right now, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find a way still to help, because that's what I do. I like to help people. It's why we do this. We sit here, we're not getting paid to do this. You know, it's fun to talk every week. You know, I like talking to Mike. I like talking to Nick. When Amar's on, I like talking to Amar. But we're doing it because we want people to learn, you know, the crap Nick and I were always talking about just together. We want people to learn those things. You know, Mike hops on here every week, not necessarily to give his opinion on things, but to pick up the crap we're saying so you can go, hey, I never thought of that. I'm going to do that because that sounds like a good idea. I know when we did the earn income money now, before we got off of that session, Mike had already downloaded Achievement and was hooking it up to his Fitbit so he could get paid. Yeah. These are the things we get excited about, you know, and even going back to another previous episode, which, you know, Nick and I are really excited. We're going to get to do a update on the house episode, because TJ and Danny that joined us in the house episode, they found a house. They're currently going through an appraisal. They hope to close on it pretty soon. And I asked TJ, I'm like, can we have you, you know, back on a Zoom call so we can sit there and see how the process went? Did we help, you know, and all that stuff? And he's excited to come back on and share his experience. So, you know, we're doing these things, which, you know, okay, maybe it's not charity, but in some ways it is, because we're trying to impart knowledge, and that there's a charitable aspect to that. So do I think that should come last? Absolutely not. Do I think you should only do one step at a time? Absolutely not. Does Ramsey's plan work? Absolutely it does.
I say, you know, I ask questions all the time. You know, I say, when David and I coached together, we coached in a very, not very, but it's an inner city school, right? I mean, the income level of the people just isn't there, right? But if David wasn't out there buying a baseball bat or a softball bat, right? These kids would have nothing to hit with. I mean, this school, these kids weren't going to fund it. Their parents aren't running it. You know, we played against some teams where every single kid showed up with a bat bag, right? Their own gloves. You know, they all have face guards, you know, and gosh, if we didn't give, we would have nothing of that, right? Like, so I don't think there needs to be a time where you need to tell me when to give my money, right? Yeah, if I'm hurting, I understand that, but you know what? I think it's my financial responsibility to figure out what I can afford to pay. I mean, I go out, I don't tell anybody this ever. My wife and I go out to eat quite a bit, and we'll just look at somebody or some people, and we'll pay their meal, right? I'll look at an old couple. I think I want to say 80s, 90s, and right, and I was like, man, I want to be like them someday, just still going out to eat and in love, and so we pay their meal. The young couple that looks like they're being on their first date, right? I'll be like, man, I remember how hard it was to try to impress and have $0 to go buy ice cream, but I still did it. So I'm gonna buy that, right? It's these thoughts that just run through my mind, and I justify my own reasons for why I do things, and it makes me feel good. But again, it's about my money and what I've done to earn it. If I feel like giving a little bit, and again, I think that we need to have financial responsibility. If your mom needs 30 grand because she's in credit card debt, look, I'm not saying go give your mom 30 grand, right? Like, what you do is you sit her down and you say, watch David and Nick, and we're gonna learn you something today. So, yeah, I building wealth. We've talked about that, right? We're going back to baby step 4, investing 15. I think you need to build wealth all the time. I think the younger you start building the wealth, the faster I guess the more wealthy you're going to be. I can't say the faster guaranteed because it's not always a guarantee, but I think you always need to be doing that. I think you always, and giving in this situation always comes to a financial thing, but you don't always have to give just financially, right? We always say time is money. You can give your time. So Dave Ramsey is always about, way back in baby step 2 about paying off your debts. He's like, oh, go Uber, go get side jobs, go do this and that. You know what? If you're the kind of person who is getting by, you got a little bit of debt, and you can change your budget, but you're donating your time every week to the nursing home, or you're donating to some cause, or you're doing whatever, I'm not going to be the person to tell you to change what makes you happy, because I know that those things make you happy, right? I mean, again, we all three here, we donate so much time. It's crazy. So, I think there's a lot to be said about Dave Ramsey's stuff. It works, but in our opinion, it could be done a little bit better. So, I say one other thing I want to touch on is, or a couple other things, I guess. Dave Ramsey is going back to the relationship status. He doesn't want you to combine money until you are officially married. Again, this goes back to opinion, right? He lives biblically, and husband and wife are one thing. Again, I say if you've been together a while, or let's say even right now you're living in a apartment together or something, and one has debt, one doesn't. My opinion is if you feel comfortable giving that person money to help pay their debt, so do it, because you know what? Maybe that'll help your relationship grow better. I can't tell you how to spend your money, and if you can better some person's life by teaching them financial responsibility and maybe helping them out a little bit here and there, you don't even have to give them money. Technically, you could just say, hey, I'll cover 75% of rent. You cover 25. As long as you prove to me that you're paying down your debt. I'm not going to tell you guys how to live your life, but I'm saying my wife and I to this day do not have combined bank accounts. It doesn't work for us. It would drive us both crazy. It would drive me crazy seeing stupid things on there that she's spending my money on. And even though all of it's her money, whatever you want to call it, like I go insane looking at that type of stuff. So, and when she looks at my accounts or we talk about me spending money, she goes crazy. Her buying coffee bugs the crap out of me. Me buying, $400 in ammo bugs the crap out of her. To me, I'm like, I'm good. She's like, shut up. So we don't have combined accounts at all. And I don't think, again, I've been married almost 10 years. Can't say my marriage isn't successful. So I can't say that there's a right way or a wrong way. I think if you guys bitch about coffee, right? Don't have combined incomes. Let her hide that dang coffee, because if not, she's gonna go pull $20 out of the bank, and she's gonna have coffee 4 days a week on that $20. You're gonna go, where that 20 going? She's gonna go, I don't have a clue, right? You're not gonna know it's coffee. So, David, anything about the combined incomes thing?
Yeah, I think that, Nick brings up a good point. If you live together and you feel confident enough in your relationship and you want to combine incomes, that's fine. The one thing you have to look at is, am I okay losing whatever amount of money I'm losing? So, for example, you're dating somebody, they have a $500 bill, you decide to pay that $500 bill off. You break up a month later. Don't get pissed about the $500 bill you just paid off, and don't sit there and say, well, you owe me $500. That was your choice to pay the bill off. You need to know that shit could go sideways. That happens. That's life. Okay. There's no reason to sit there and cry and moan about it anymore. Unfortunately, it's a lesson. You learned it. You move on with your life and don't make that same choice next time. You have to be okay with, I'm going to spend this money right now. And if it doesn't work out, then it's a lesson learned.
Yep. So, Mike, any input on combining income?
I think I have to agree with both of you. I mean, I think if you're comfortable, do it. I mean, I've known people who had been together 5+ years, opted to buy a house together, and were able to successfully do that. But then, like you said, there's also nothing wrong with being married for several years and having split accounts. I mean, it's whatever works for you guys. And definitely, I mean, you have split accounts, but I'm sure, you're paying some of the bills, Courtney's paying some of the bills, you're splitting it evenly, you're not paying like all the bills and she's using all of her money for coffee.
Say she actually pays all the bills, and I do the savings. So, but no, I pay more.
You're the she's the sugar mama.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Say, if she has $1, she'll spend it. But one thing I guess I'll give people that want to do separate accounts. I'll give you advice that I do. At any point, my wife can ask me how much money I have in my account, and I will instantly tell her, almost to the penny. I say without having to look it up. If I look it up, I'll tell her exactly what it is. She has the same kind of a rule, right? If I ask her, hey, how much is in your account? And granted, I don't think she has password and codes to my accounts, but she's on all but one right now, just in case, because of beneficiary things. But so she can go see it at any point. So I think it having the ability to look at accounts and things like that just keeps that trust factor there to make sure, because I don't want my wife to feel like I'm controlling it in any way, and I don't want her to feel like she's not allowed to do whatever. I just don't want her to be able to spend our savings, because she will. Right? I mean, we'd have a bigger pool than we have now, so the whole backyard. But I think that's that's a thing. Just figure out what's comfortable with you guys. Make sure you talk all the time. We talk about finances. Even now, 10 years later, I stupidly will just randomly go, hey, you got a credit card I don't know about? Her answer is always no, but never know if I catch her off guard, and she might just go, oh man, he caught me. So we're very honest about our money and where we're headed. So
I mean, if you can't be honest in that situation, then you wonder, why did they have a secret account? Why do they have a credit card that they're not telling you about? And I think, to me, that's a red flag if they're planning something you're not. I mean, maybe if they're planning a surprise trip for your 15-year anniversary, but maybe they're, planning to divorce you.
Yeah.
Well, we've had many people book appointments through us. And the wife will call and say, listen, I can't put this on my credit card because he watches everything.
Yeah.
I get that. My wife can't put anything on the credit card without me seeing it either, because if it goes on within a day, I'm like, what the hell is this? Why don't I know about this? What's this, payment to this company I've never heard of? I don't know if she's done it or not. I know that, I had a transaction about 2-3 weeks ago. It was $80. I didn't know what the hell it was. I asked her to call Capital One. They're like, well, this is what it is. She goes, yeah, we didn't make that purchase.
Let's see. The only way I know when my wife spends money is when the Amazon package shows up at the door. So, no, the other big rule I guess that Dave Ramsey has is 50% of your yearly salary, no more than 50% of your yearly salary should be tied up into things that have a motor. So your cars, right? So if you make $40,000 a year, your car shouldn't cost more than 20. Never buy a new car. We talk about that. Now, let's say your car costs $20,000. And according to Dave Ramsey, at this point, you are not allowed to own a lawnmower, right? No, not even a push mower. I mean, that puts you over. You're not allowed to own a boat. You can't own quads. You can't own things. So, I'll be honest. I don't really. I mean, I own, 4 vehicles, and the value of them are not high. So, I'm a rust and bondo kind of guy, and if it drives, it goes. So, I never really got into those things, but I know that people like their play toys. So, do I think 50% is a good number? Sure, I'll agree with them at this point. But again, if you're gonna have $20,000 that you can spend, you shouldn't be financing any of it. I know David finances vehicles. I think you can finance an inexpensive car, especially at these 1% interest rates. So, but I guess I'm not against financing a vehicle, but I am against financing things like boats, right? Things that break, then you got to finance to fix them. Those are the things that piss me off. Oh, hey, I got a quad and I took it over a big old jump and now I have $6,000 worth of work and you got to finance it. It's like, those are fun things, right? Things that have to get you back, things that are guaranteed to get you back and forth to work to make money. You could probably convince me at 1 to 2% interest rate to finance it at a really low monthly payment. Because again, if I have 15 sitting out there making 3% and I finance 10 at 1.5, I'm making money still, right? I mean, I'm about that life. So, but I'm not going to go finance a boat. I'm going to pay cash for it. I'm not going to finance dirt bikes, my motorcycle, quads. Trust me, Harley Davidson, man, they'll finance anybody. You'll be paying 25% interest for 50 years, but they'll finance you. And so, as much as I like people that ride bikes, don't go financing it, because we all know Harleys are going to break down, right? So, but no, so I think take a look at what you have. If you got a lot of property, right, and you need a big old John Deere tractor to plow your stuff and farm your fields, you better be driving a beater truck, right? You better have my 03 Dodge Ram that's falling apart. So, I can't put a number on it. I've been thinking about it this whole time, what number of things with a motor, but if it was on me, I guess I'm at like the 30% range, and that's like max, because even at that, I don't have that. I'm nowhere near that. I'm 10% or low, because I've got a deal on my mower. I got a deal on all my vehicles, so it's crazy. So.
Yeah, and you know me, I'm always looking for a deal. I don't buy cars that are overly expensive. I don't like $20,000. I'm finding something cheaper than that. When my daughter was looking for a car, I told my mechanic what I wanted and the price range I was willing to go, and he found me exactly what I was looking for. And even with her, I said, I only think you can afford $200 a month, so I pay the extra 36.
Yep. Not everybody's got a rich daddy that will pay their money.
True story.
Yep.
That's why I have a rich daughter now, because daddy paid.
Let's see. I need adopted. Guys, if you have input on this subject, we'd like to hear it, because it's actually one of the things that I love to bring up all the time and debate. And I don't think I'm smarter than Dave. I just think that you shouldn't say blanket statements. That's my philosophy. This is the only way. This is the way. No, it is not. I will prove it to you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking forward to the TJ episode for sure, man. That's exciting.
That is very exciting. I like to hear that people listen to what we do and they go out and have some success. That's an awesome thing. As Nick always says, please share, like, subscribe. If you'd like to, perhaps reach out to us and sponsor. Because
Milwaukee's fun.
Nick is still a proud drinker, and Mike and I drank it when we were 5. So.
Old habits die young, you know?
Yes, they do. As always, we'll figure out what we're talking about next week. If you have any questions or any input, please let us know. And hopefully you've taken something from this Ramsey episode and you can find a way to better your financial outlook.
Yeah. Take care, guys. We'll see you next week.
All right.